The Magic Gourd. In the heart of a small village in Nigeria, there lived a young man named Ojo. Ojo was known throughout the village for his kind heart and generous spirit, though he had very little to give. He was a simple farmer who toiled every day under the scorching sun, cultivating the small plot of land he inherited from his late father. His crops were meager, and he lived a humble life in a tiny hut on the outskirts of the village. Despite his poverty, Ojo was always ready to help anyone in need, sharing the little he had with those who were even less fortunate. One day, after a long day of working in the fields, Ojo decided to take a walk through the forest near his home. The sun was setting, and the golden light filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. As Ojo walked, he heard a faint cry coming from deeper within the forest. Curious and concerned, he followed the sound until he came upon a clearing. There, to his surprise, he found an old man trapped beneath a fallen tree. The old man's face was etched with lines of pain and exhaustion. Without hesitation, Ojo rushed to the man's aid. He used all his strength to lift the heavy tree and free the old man. After a few minutes of struggle, Ojo finally succeeded. The old man, now free, stood up slowly, wincing in pain. "Thank you, young man," the old man said, his voice weak but filled with gratitude. "You have saved my life. How can I ever repay you?" Ojo smiled humbly. "There is no need for repayment, Baba. I did what anyone would do. I'm just glad you are safe." The old man looked at Ojo with deep, thoughtful eyes. "You have a kind heart, my son, and for that, you deserve a reward. I may look like a poor, old man, but I am more than what I seem." He reached into his robes and pulled out a small, seemingly ordinary gourd. The gourd was smooth and round, with a single small hole at the top. "This," the old man said, handing the gourd to Ojo, "is a magic gourd. It may not look like much, but it has the power to give you anything you desire. All you must do is whisper your wish into the gourd, and it will be granted." Ojo looked at the gourd in disbelief. He had heard tales of magical items in the stories his mother used to tell him, but he never imagined he would encounter such a thing in his life. "Baba, this is too much. I don't deserve such a gift," Ojo said, trying to hand the gourd back. But the old man refused. "You do deserve it, Ojo. Your kindness and generosity have earned you this gift. Use it wisely, and remember to always stay humble and true to yourself." With that, the old man turned and slowly walked away, disappearing into the forest. Ojo stood there for a moment, holding the gourd and wondering if what had just happened was real. But as he returned home and placed the gourd on his small table, he decided to test the old man's words. He whispered into the gourd, "I wish for a meal to fill my belly tonight." To his astonishment, the gourd began to tremble in his hands, and out of the small hole at the top, a hot, steaming meal began to pour out. It was the most delicious food Ojo had ever seen: the jollof rice with succulent pieces of chicken, fried plantains, and a refreshing drink to wash it down. Ojo ate the meal with gratitude, marveling at the magic of the gourd. He realized that this gift could change his life. But Ojo, being the kind-hearted man he was, did not use the gourd for himself alone. The next day, he whispered into the gourd, "I wish for enough food to feed my village," and once again, the gourd granted his wish. He went to the village square and called out to his neighbors, sharing the food with everyone. The villagers were amazed and grateful, but they also grew curious. "Ojo, where did you get this food?" they asked. Ojo, being an honest man, told them about the magic gourd and how he had received it from the old man in the forest. The villagers were in awe of the god's power, and they praised Ojo for his generosity. Days turned into weeks, and Ojo continued to use the god to help his village. He wished for better crops, and soon the fields were filled with bountiful harvests. He wished for new clothes for the children, and they were all dressed in colorful garments. The village, which had once been poor and struggling, now thrived, all thanks to Ojo and the Magic Gourd. But as the village prospered, word of the Magic Gourd began to spread. Soon, people from neighboring villages and even distant towns came to see the god for themselves. Among them was a greedy and envious chief from a nearby village. The chief, who was known for his wealth and power, was determined to get the god for himself. One day, the chief visited Ojo's village, pretending to be a friend. He praised Ojo for his kindness and offered to host a grand feast in his honor. Ojo, who was unaware of the chief's true intentions, accepted the invitation. During the feast, the chief lavished Ojo with compliments and gifts, trying to win his trust. As the night wore on, the chief suggested that Ojo bring the Magic Gourd to the feast so that everyone could see it up close. Ojo, trusting the chief, agreed and brought the gourd with him. As soon as the gourd was in the chief's hands, his demeanor changed. The chief's eyes gleamed with greed as he clutched the gourd tightly. "This gourd will be mine," he declared, revealing his true intentions. He ordered his guards to seize Ojo and take the gourd by force. Ojo struggled, but the guards were too strong. They tied him up and took the gourd away. The chief, now in possession of the Magic Gourd, laughed triumphantly. He returned to his village, leaving Ojo behind. The villagers, heartbroken and angry, tried to console Ojo, but he was devastated. He had lost the god that had brought so much prosperity to his village. But even in his despair, Ojo remembered the old man's words, to stay humble and true to himself. Meanwhile, the chief wasted no time in using the god for his own selfish desires. He wished for gold, jewels, and luxury, and the god granted his every wish. His palace overflowed with riches, and he reveled in his newfound wealth. But the more he wished, the more insatiable his greed became. The chief's greed soon attracted the attention of a powerful sorcerer who lived in the mountains. The sorcerer, sensing the imbalance caused by the chief's misuse of the god, decided to intervene. He disguised himself as a poor beggar and traveled to the chief's palace. When the sorcerer arrived, the chief was sitting on a throne made of gold, surrounded by piles of treasure. "Please, kind chief," the sorcerer said, "I am a poor man in need of help. Could you spare just a little food from your bounty?" The chief sneered at the beggar. "I have no time for beggars. Leave my palace at once." But the sorcerer persisted. "Please, just a small piece of bread. Surely, with all your riches, you can afford to be generous." The chief, growing impatient, ordered his guards to throw the beggar out. But before they could, the sorcerer revealed his true form. The air around him crackled with magic as he transformed into a towering figure, his eyes glowing with power. The chief, now terrified, realized his mistake. He fell to his knees, begging for mercy. But the sorcerer was unmoved. "You have used the Magic Gourd for greed and selfishness," the sorcerer said. "You have upset the balance of the world with your actions. Now, you must face the consequences." With a wave of his hand, the sorcerer turned the gourd into a simple clay pot, its magic gone. The chief's riches vanished, and his palace crumbled to dust. He was left with nothing, his greed having destroyed all he had gained. The sorcerer then traveled to Ojo's village, where he found Ojo, still mourning the loss of the god. The sorcerer approached him and said, "Ojo, your kindness and humility have not gone unnoticed. The god's magic may be gone, but the spirit of generosity lives on in you." With that, the sorcerer handed Ojo the clay pot. "Use this pot to continue helping your village, not through magic, but through your hard work and good heart." Ojo accepted the pot with gratitude. Though it was no longer magical, he knew that the real magic lay within him, the magic of kindness, generosity, and a heart that never faltered. Ojo returned to his fields, and with the help of his village, they continued to thrive. The lessons learned from the Magic Gourd stayed with Ojo and his people, reminding them that true wealth is not in gold or riches.